就像某宝那种那样
一样，对，某宝下单一样，对，
方便啊，
对这种感觉。
回头我试试，就是说在线上完了看到像某宝一样，你觉得我要拍哪儿，然后它上面会有一定相应的价格，然后你就一拍就行。
我们是有一个地球的一个图像，那么在地球上可以截取一段，那么可以实现我们原始数据的查询，那么也可以把这个订单直接发给我们，我们可以短时间内把它拍出来，那么再分发给我们的用户，这样所以很方便，一个这样的交互系统。那么我们的用户跟我们这个卫星呢，就搭建了这样的一个对接的一个平台，实际上是效率非常高的。那么很快几天一般就能拍下来一个他想要的一个图片。对，
好，我们的节目差不多了，一会儿呢，两位老师跟网友各说一句话吧，节目结束之前，好不好？好的，各位网友，那么星空呢，给人类提供了无穷的想象力，那么人类发展的基础呢？也是想象力，想象力让我们人类越走越远，让生活更加美好。好，今天的直播就到这里。直播的最后呢，我们有请两位嘉宾跟网友再各说一句话。
我们知道人类的进步呢是从拿起棒子开始，所以我们的吉林1号卫星呢真的是让我们的世界近在眼前。我们要利用好这个工具，那么让我们的眼呢收获更好的这些美景。这样，
愿各位美丽的星空始终吸引你。希望我们也是共同走向，也就是美好的星空，观测星空，探测星空，了解星空。
好的，今天这个火星大冲的这个东北吉林长春的直播呢，就到这里，請網友接着收看我們接下來地點的直播。
show in Jilin in northeast of China. The next stop is Guangzhou. A few words about our
广州
Guangzhou
的这
show.
个今天晚上，廣州的这个天文爱好者呀，将这个望远镜搬到了街头。
Astrophiles can bring your telescope on the street, so you have an observatory on the street. So please keep on observing and see how interesting it can be to observe the sky on the street.
好努力哦！刚好尴尬的看着还在继续。
所以我们是从8点50开始。好。 So every 15 years we can actually see the Mars at opposition and the total lunar eclipse, and it's very rare we can see these two things together tonight. On July 27th of 2018, and we're bringing live streaming on 3 different channels. Good evening. This is our 12-hour live streaming of Mars at opposition and a total lunar eclipse. I am in Guangzhou of Guangdong province, and in this live streaming we are situated in 5 different places in Xinjiang, Qinghai, Guangdong, Hebei, and Jilin. And Guangzhou is actually situated in relatively west, a lower latitude, so we are one of the first places to actually see the stars. And when you saw the images of Venus and Saturn, it actually came from here. And from Jilin number 1, the satellite, we saw the Mars from its images. And now we're coming to the surface of the Earth. We're here on this square, Flower City Square, and here we're bringing you to actually see and enjoy the view. To actually enjoy the view of Mars at opposition and the total lunar eclipse, it includes Xinjiang, Qinghai, Guangdong, Hebei, and Jilin, 5 cities in these 5 provinces. And Guangzhou is actually situated in the middle and actually to the west compared to these 4 other cities. And actually when you see the images, Venus and Saturn actually came from Guangzhou. And later you actually see the moon set with a partial eclipse this evening. In this process, we could actually hear what they said from the scientists and experts here on site, and also during the live streaming we'll also pose questions. If you answer it correctly, you will have the chance to win a gift. This planet light is actually a projector. Can you see the images here? can't really see it clearly on the ground. You can project the planets on the ground. If you listen carefully about the science and theories and interact with us, you will have a chance to win the gift. Before we start the interview, I would like to talk about what exactly is Mars at opposition. Say, this is the Sun, Earth, and Mars. When the three are on the same line, well, in 180 degrees, that is what we call Mars at opposition. And this is what we call the great opposition when it's closest to the Earth, and it only happens every 15 to 17 years, and last time it was in 2003, 15 years ago. And also, we're also going to see the longest total lunar eclipse tonight. So, and here we are holding an activity here tonight, face-to-face with Mars and Moon, also co-hosted with the observatory in Guangzhou. And here we're holding a seminar here. We're also talking to Professor Chen tonight. Is it a possible immigration destination for people on Earth? Is it likely for people on Earth to immigrate to Mars? And also, we have children here to actually play with clay. This is also related to astronomy. And we will actually review their innovation and recreation to see if it's related to what we are observing tonight and see if there are any innovation coming from their works of art. This is actually a very enjoyable activity to do stargazing on this summer night. Let us take a look at Mars from our telescopes. Well, first of all, let us say a few words with the director of the museum in Guangzhou. He is, well, the Guangzhou Museum is actually one of the co-hosts of this event tonight. 15分钟，好废。 When Mars opposition coincided with the longest lunar eclipse of the century, so the two celestial events will happen on the same day. Tonight, July 27, 2018. So now we have audience from our Weibo, WeChat, and also from our CTV new media channel. So we are now providing you the 12-hour-long live stream. Right now I'm in Guangzhou of Guangdong province, and tonight we are doing actually a relay live stream in 5 stops from east to west. So earlier in Jilin, we actually showed you the image of Mars from our remote sensing satellite, Jilin 1. And tonight I'm in a plaza in Guangzhou. I'll briefly show you the image of Mars opposition with naked eyes and also with binocular and telescope. As you can see that the Mars already rose from the southeast and it's actually visible. It's very shining very brightly with a orange with a red hue. So right now with naked eye it's not very clear, but from telescope we can see it very clearly. Tonight we are holding an event called Face to Face with Mars. Earlier we had a very short 30 minutes seminar provided by Mr. Chen from the Astronomical Society in Guangzhou. Tonight we also have some interesting activities between parents and children, and also we actually provide several telescopes on the plaza for the public enjoyment. So actually from here, Guangzhou, the stars rise to the sky very early, and we can see some visitors in Guangzhou who are watching the sky right now. Now let's please join me in welcoming Mr. Chen and listening to his perspective on this event. Please say hi to our audience. Hi, audience. Hi, everyone. Good evening. And I think everyone is wondering, so about the news yesterday that liquid water was identified on Mars. Yes, right now it's confirmed there's a liquid form of water on Mars. So is it possible for us to immigrate to Mars now? Well, we are actually one step closer to immigrating to Mars. Although it's actually high density water, it's salty water, it's not pure water, but still, this is a good news. So what's the plan for China to actually launch a probe to Mars? So we actually have a very ambitious goal that our probe actually has 3 steps: going around the Mars, and we'll also launch on the surface, land on the surface of the Mars, and then we also will have. And right now, the U.S. already have 2 Mars rover on Mars, but in the future, China will also have one on the surface of Mars. So in ancient China, we have another name for Mars. It's called Yinghuo. Sounds very mysterious. Where does this name come from? It's actually from a poem. So in the past, Chinese people did not favor Mars very much. We saw it as a sign for disaster. The character Yin means uncertainty. For example, we're uncertain about its orbit. Sometimes orbit is not regular. So most stars rise from the east and set in the west. But for Mars, sometimes it actually orbits the opposite. It rises from the west and sets in the east. In the past, ancient people did not know that actually all planets orbits around the sun. So
Actually, sometimes Mars is closer to planet Earth, and the distance difference between the closest point to the farthest point is very large. That's why ancient people were afraid of Mars. And now we understand all those signs, all the phenomena are actually understandable. So actually, this day is auspicious. It's not a bad sign at all. In modern days, during the Mars opposition, is the best time to launch probes or to observe Mars. It's a good time. So, earlier you explained, through your explanation, do you think that actually audience can gain more information about Mars? So I think people are becoming more and more aware of astronomical phenomena. Earlier, I was talking to some children, and they all know at least something about Mars. So they're starting to become more aware. So the Mars Great Opposition happens every 15 or 17 years. So this time, last time was 15 years ago. What about the next year? It's not exactly 15 years per se. It's more like between 15 to 17 years. Because there's some uncertainty. For example, we also need to take into account of the orbit of the Earth. What about the other opposition? It's more about 2 years, once per 2 years. So earlier we had a seminar here, and now shall we go see the stars through the telescope? As you can see, people are lining up in front of the telescopes. How many telescopes do we have today? So today we have 8 telescopes of different sizes. One is here, the others are for the public to use. Oh, such a long queue. Besides Mars, what other planets can we see? We can see actually Venus, Saturn, Jupiter, and Venus just set. And we can still see Juniper. Right now Mars is at its brightest. You can see Mars through the telescope. You can see all telescopes are pointing to the same direction. Oh, Mr. Chen, can you show us the telescope? So right now, people are lining up. Today we already saw Mars and Saturn.
没事，您也可以帮我们讲解一下。现在这个望远镜对的是哪里？火星。啊。
So right now, which planet is it pointing at?
啊，哎，正好我问一下，这位市民，您好。
Hi.
想问一下，对，看到什么
Hi, I want to ask you a question. What did you see?
我还没看到东西。还没看到，那先看一下。
I haven't seen anything yet. I'll take a look then.
就是直接冲着它看，对吗？
Just look into it. I can't see very clearly.
直接冲着它看就可以了。
Just look into it. You can see it directly.
有看到吗？没有看到，让我们的志愿者看一下。很清楚吗？
It's very clear.
我们现在看到的是木星，对吗？
Now it is pointing to Juniper or Saturn. I can see a oval orbit, oval ring, and there is a small orb inside, and it's shining. What color is it? And the shining orb is actually white. So this is a Saturn.
那么我们去下一台可以看到火星的这个望远镜。
Well, let's move on to the next telescope for Mars.
方向，不知道大家是否能够看清月亮下面的
Well, can you see there's the Mars right next to the moon?
可以看到火星的，大家可以在镜头里可以看到火星，就在月亮下面。
Yes, right now.
大概用我们的手指伸出去，大概有半张手的距离吧。
Probably
这个火星
half of the palms away from the moon. Now you can see it's a shining
好，我们来采访一下广州市天文协会爱好者协会的会长罗会长。罗会长您好。
So now we have a Mr. Law with us, the president of the Astronomical Society of Guangzhou. So tonight, do you think that Mars is very visible today? It is. It's quite big, especially through the telescope. It's almost like peanut size, but the color is almost orange. Why it shines like orange right now? Because on its surface there's some iron. There's oxidized iron. That's why Mars is almost red. So there's sandstorm on Mars, right? I heard. Yeah. We've been waiting for it for a long time, and since last month, the sandstorm started. And there's a huge sandstorm raging through Mars. That's why we cannot see the details of Mars. So what's the difference between the sandstorm on Mars and the sandstorm in northern China? It's almost the same, but the air resistance in Mars is smaller, and also the gravitational pull is smaller. And that's why the sandstorm will take longer to calm down. And sand is very light. That's why a sandstorm can rage through the whole planet. It usually lasts 1 to 2 months, sometimes even 4 to 5 months. It sounds like a harsh environment to live. Yes, it's harsher than living in Sahara's desert. So we have to do a lot of preparation for immigrating to Mars, right? Yeah, I would not personally prefer to live there. And when we were pointing our camera to the Mars, we couldn't see it very clearly, but now it's shining brighter and brighter. Are there any tips for taking photos of Mars? Well, if you are taking photos of this planet, you need a big telescope, and we're not using just the usual camera, but usually we would take a video. And in this way, you can actually avoid the blurry caused by the vibration of the air. So when we add all those images together, we can have a much clearer view of the planet. So right now there are some very good cameras like a smart camera, a smartphone, which can be used to shoot a good photo. But if you go to a place, a desert or a very remote area with a tripod, I think the layman camera can also be used to take a clear photo of Mars. Because right now the camera on smartphones is getting better and better. So what's the best time to observe Mars opposition? The whole night? Yes, our activity is from 8 to 10. But as you can see, the Mars is rising in the sky. And the higher the better, because when it's at lower point, there's actually more air vibration. So in midnight, it's probably better, but we won't wait that long. So usually, and those sky gazer will wait longer for a better view. So earlier, which planet did we see? Yeah, earlier we saw Venus. Before dawn, we saw Venus, and then we saw Juniper, and then Saturn, and then Mars. So, what's the planet with the red spots? That's Juniper. Oh, strange. The cloud ring surrounding the planet is quite visible today, and tonight we also saw another famous feature of Juniper, the big red spot. It's been spotted hundreds of years ago, and it's quite strange. And it's actually a very big storm. It lasted centuries. So when we observe juniper, that's our favorite feature. Yeah, because it's bright and quite visible, right? Yes. So for other planets, do we have a phenomenon like Mars opposition? For other planets like Saturn and Juniper, we do have a phenomenon called opposition, and that means that when the Sun, Earth, and the planet are aligned, but there's no great opposition because those planets are further away from Earth. So it does not really affect the view of those planets that much when it's getting closer. But for Mars, during great opposition, the view is very visible. So earlier, a child was actually praising the view of Saturn, that it looked beautiful. As tonight we saw it through many telescopes. So a girl there actually was quite amazed by the view. That was really pretty. So tonight, our conditions are very ideal, right? It's not ideal, but we're quite lucky because recently we have cloudy days, rainy days, and tonight we saw the weather forecast that the weather will improve. So we're quite lucky today. And some people ask that actually Pluto was excluded from the 9 planets of solar system. So yeah, I remember it was many years ago when it was actually excluded because it was found that there are many other celestial bodies around Pluto. Either we include those bodies as major planets, or we should exclude them all. And during the International Astronomical Conference, it was decided that Pluto should be excluded.
So they actually define those larger planets and actually take Pluto out of the 9-planet system. Any other interesting event we can observe recently? While the second half of this evening we'll see the total lunar eclipse, one of the longest in recent years, starting from 2 o'clock in the morning all the way to 5 o'clock. But we're not planning to hold any activities because it's too late in the evening. It lasts all the way to 5:30, 5 o'clock in the morning before the sun rises. So that is what we call the moon setting with partial eclipse, correct? Yes. Within this month, I mean in 2 weeks in the middle of August, we can see a shooting star rain, in which we'll see a high amount of this shooting star rain. If the weather is good, when you go to the suburbs, you'll see more shooting stars during that period. I'm sure this will be something really nice to observe. Thank you for answering all those questions. Well, let me just interview a few children to see how they feel after participating in our events. Any children here? Hello. Did you see Mars tonight? I saw it. It's red. How did you feel? I felt it was really nice. Very light red. First time you see Mars? Have you ever participated in any astronomy-related events? No. But I will really look forward to more. Any knowledge you want to learn? Distance, distance between different planets. Do you know all the 8 planets in the solar system? The Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, 2 more. Mercury, Venus. Hope you enjoy the activity tonight. Thank you.
现在呢，我们可以清晰的看到火星依然挂在东南角的天
Now we
空
can see
在月亮下
clearly
方。
on the
这里
southeast
呢
of the
是
sky.
广
We
州
can
市的
actually
花
see
城广
Mars
场，
here.
广东省博物馆前的
This
广
is
场
the。
今天在这里举
square
办
in
我和
front
火
of the
星面对面的
Provincial
活动，很多
Museum
市
of
民呢在
Guangdong.
这里通过
We're
我们的望
holding
远
an
镜，如
event
愿以偿
here.
的看到了火星。
Many
也有很多小朋友是
local
第一次看火星，其
residents
实我自己也
are
是第一次看火
enjoying
星，
the
感觉
view
非常
of
的激动，
Mars right
因为
here,
这个
and
火
this
星的
is
颜色
actually
呢是
my
非常的
first
明亮
time
的，而且
to
是发
see
红的。
Mars.
很
To
高兴
see
能
the
跟大家
bright
度过这
red
么一段的
color
时间。
of
然后接
Mars.
下来我们
I
直播还
really
会继续，
enjoy
今
the
天我
time
们
we
的央视
spent with
推
you.
出的5个地方的直
And
播呢，
also
分别
on
是新疆乌鲁木
CCTV,
齐、
we
青
have
海的
the
德令
viewing
哈，还有广东
activities
广
in
州、
different 5
河北兴隆、
locations in
吉
China,
林、
in
长春。今
Guangdong,
天的是
in
这里呢是
Hedong.
广州的情况。我们广州的直播呢
And this
暂时就到
is
这
the
里，
live
希望
streaming
大家呢能
from
够继续锁
Guangdong.
定我们的央视新
And
闻
I
移动网、央
hope
视
you
新闻客户端、
enjoyed
央
the
视新闻
view
微
and
博
also
来观看
please
我们
pay
其他
attention
地
to
的
our live
火星
streaming in
大冲
other
的直播，以及
locations
后半月的
and see our
后
live
半夜的
streaming
带
of
时
Mars at
落月的直
opposition
播。我
as
是广东
well
广
as
电台花
the
城家的
total
记者朱
lunar
牧师，很高
eclipse
兴
in
跟
the
大家度
second
过
half
一
of
个
this
愉快的
evening.
夜晚。接下来我们把
I
信
really
号给到
enjoyed the
河
time we
北的
spent with
兴隆
you.
站顾国宁
Now
直
let
播。
us turn to Xinglong Station in Hebei Province.
一会儿我镜头要往这儿转啊，你再注意。好的，央视新闻的各位网友，大家好，我是国宁。现在呢，我们的直播信号啊，再次交回了国家天文台
Internet
兴隆
channel.
观测
Now
站。
let us
大家
turn
是不
back
是觉
to
得
the
我现在
National
的所在的这个
Observatory
位
in
置光线很
Xinglong?
暗，几乎我身上其他
Well,
地
it's
方
actually
几乎都
very
看不清了。
dark
那为什么
in
会这
this
样
room.
呢
You？can't
也有
really
网友提
see
出这样的质
all the
疑，为什
detail
么
of
我们
this
这
room.
个
A
兴
lot
隆
of
观测站的
netizens
光
have
线
actually
就要
posed this
暗一些
question.
呢？在这里
Why
要
is
跟
it
大家报告
darker in
是
this
对
room
于
in this
专
observatory?
业的光学观测
Well,
来说啊，
for
多余的，
those
尤其是夜
very
间多余的一
professional
点点光亮
optic
都会影响到观测结
observation,
果。在我的身后呢是一
a
个
little
多
bit
孔
of
屏，
light might
大概在1个小时
interfere
前
with
呢，由我们家
observation,
的
and
专业的
behind
天文
us
学家
we
来
have
给
a
来自全国各地的天文爱好者做了
multifunction
一场
room
科普的
here
一个讲
in
座啊，大家
which
这个反
we
应
held
非常热烈。
a
那现在呢，
seminar
人去楼
for
空，我
the
们现在所在的这个观
astrophiles,
测
but
站
now
的兴隆
everyone
都
has
是几乎
left,
非常安静。
and
还有一个小
here
细节
in
很
the
有意思，
central
我们
hall
都
of
见
the
过厚厚
observatory
的
it
遮
is
光的窗
empty
帘，但是你
without
见过
any
厚厚的
people.
遮
What
光
we
的是
see
吗？
very
这
heavy
这个门帘拉
curtains
开呢，就
here,
是今天我
and
们
this
第一档
actually
直播的时候，
curtains are
我走
actually
进来的地
blanketing
方。
the doors, the
大家
entrance.
看
This
外面
is
有多
where
黑。
I entered
好，
the
我
hall.
看
You
回来，
can see how dark it is
快把这个
outside.
窗
Let
帘
us
拉
turn
好。
back and close
从
the
这样一
curtains
点点
here.
小的细节也能看出来，就是我们国家的这些
From
科研人员，
any bit of detail,
非常
you
的
can
了解
actually
这
tell
个科学的精神。
how
我相
really
信在每个人
cautious
成
they
长
are
过
when
程
they
当
are
中，
working
大家的
in
心
the
中
observatory.
都会有一张
And
星空图，
I
属于自己的星空
believe
图。但是由于
everyone
客观
has
条件
their
的限制，
own map
没有
of
办法实现
stars
这样的
of
梦
the
想。那么
universe.
现在
Due
我
to
可以
many
骄傲地告诉大家啊，
limitations, not
就是我
everyone
们
can
央视
fulfill
新
their
闻新媒
dream
体
And here we have designed a astronomy magazine. This is called Star Box. I can actually show you how this works. You can scan the QR code here with WeChat. You can go directly to our app. This is a representation with VR technology. You can see a map of the stars. You finally realize your dream of the universe. It's a map and observatory in your pocket. You can see different categories. News, you can flip up and down and browse the news. For teenagers, for those stargazers, this will be a good news. Live streaming, you can see what I am doing here, a little bit of latency. If you want to download the app, you can scan the QR codes here. In light of this opportunity, a few artists have come together, and I'm really fortunate at the time to talk with them. And Professor Xu, he's a painter, he's an artist. I'm a professional artist. I'm also an art consultant to the National Conservatory. Well, I believe there's a distance between art and science. It seems physically distant. One is doing painting, the other is doing science, but overall speaking, the origin or the source of or the momentum of evolution based on your curiosity about the world. And which one is your work? And this one it is. This is the nebulas with acrylic. And this is the right question to ask. And tomorrow at here we have a seminar with all the fans and students to actually plane the nebula. You are teaching the kids how to paint nebula and how to combine art and science, astronomy together. We can increase your curiosity about the universe. You don't have to paint it very accurately. You can paint it with your imagination, with how you dream about the universe. And what about this? This is a book written by my friend, Astronomy in Poem, and this is one piece of the poem in which I have made an illustration for this poem. I'm sure when you were little you have memorized this poem. It is about a message to the emperor, how to learn from the lessons from previous dynasty. This is actually like an illustration from a textbook in school, and you can see the very interesting figures here. I don't want to go into the detail of the painting, but you see we can see some stars here. And the first line of this poem is that when you see the stars in the sky while I'm dressing up myself in front of the mirror, and you see the stars, you can see the shining stars in the sky, it actually shows this actually a astronomical event. And actually you see the star in the middle that represents Mars, and in this poem there's a word that actually is the ancient term for Mars, because the color of Mars is orange and the track of Mars, when we see Mars on the Earth, you feel like it's going backward. but what actually inspired you to paint this illustration? Because my friends always wanted to use art to inspire people or to actually educate people about science, and we engaged in different classes, different educational activities. So I'd like to share the knowledge I've learned through illustrations and paintings. And in the future, I will engage more activities that integrate science with art. So that painting was about the astronomy event in the past, and we thought whenever Mars appeared it was an omen of ill will. And here in other countries we also saw artworks about Mars, because Mars represents the god of war. Whenever the god of war appears, there will be disasters. But as science evolves, we understand that Mars itself is a planet of redness. You see the redness surrounding the planet, and that's a natural thing. And this is a piece of art from an artist who could be one of the original artists of the universe. And you could see two of his key paintings from the 1950s. So when you are standing on the ground, when you have the view of the Saturn, with his imagination, and after discussing with scientists, he made these two paintings. And this one is very interesting too. Where is it? It's like the Earth. And this is Mars in the artist's imagination. When science was not developed enough, people were imagining what Mars looks like. And of course we saw Earth on Mars and also swamp on Mars. And this is actually very similar to what we have observed today. Very similar to what the actual conditions are in Mars. And as science evolves, with technology evolves, with the aid of telescopes, we could actually observe Mars and actually make more adjustments to our imagination. I understand that children's imagination is boundless. When they take classes from you, what kind of inspiration they get from you? Well, I told them the universe is black, dark, with shiny stars. Well, they thought, I want a blue universe and dark planets and stars.
Children are always curious, although it's not scientifically accurate, but it's good for their imagination development. So sometimes the way children think can inspire us. So what's your expectation for what you're doing now? Well, I hope that I can actually promote the knowledge and also to inspire conversation. Because we have scientists doing the research. But I want to actually inspire people and to make people curious, because curiosity is actually the driving force for all scientific development. Right. Earlier on the observatory, we saw kids and also teenagers and adults, and they're all very curious. And I think this will probably really widen children's horizon. Right. And they will have a very different perspective, and their perspective can serve as inspiration to adults. Yes, our audience online said something really interesting today. They said you sent 5 journalists to 5 different places for a 12-hour live stream. Why not just do a 24-hour live stream? No. Hi. So she's a director. Hi everyone. I'm director for a documentary which will be soon to aired on CCTV. So our documentary is about looking for evidence for astronomical phenomenon. So this documentary is about astronomy. So this is actually a piece from the relics, right? On this painting, you can see there's a man leading an ox, and opposite to him there's a woman weaving some cloths, and there's some dots between them and lines. So all those lines connecting the dots forming constellations, as we know, they are similar to the 12 constellations we know now. Right. Today, after we launch our e-magazine Starbox, we'll use VR technology to show our users the constellations that actually look very similar to this. Yes, the similarity actually comes from our daily life. So the brightest one represents this man, and so this comes from a ancient Chinese legend. The Altair and Vega. So you can see these two stars are at opposition to each other, with the Milky Way in the middle. Well, this really reminds me of a song. I was playing the song in the back of my head. So is there any other stars we can see from this relic? Right. So, for example, this one, the Big Dipper, this is the most famous constellation because it also can point direction and be used for navigation in the past. So this is actually a painting on the top of a tomb. So whose tomb is this? We don't know yet. It was discovered in 2015, and this can date back to the Eastern Han Dynasty, right? They can date back to 2,000 years ago. So that might actually evidence our interest in astronomy back in thousands of years ago. Yes, we have evidence and also written record, right, in the very beginning of humanity. So at night, people gaze into the night sky to think about profound questions, right? This painting comes from this arch top. So in Han Dynasty, a very important thought is that they think that after they die, they will become a part of the universe. So the top of the tomb basically represents heaven. That's why in Han Dynasty it was very common to paint the sky, starry sky, in their tomb. And this is actually a astronomical instrument. So we actually restored it because part of this piece was rotten and broken. So this piece is used to observe celestial bodies. See, there's a disk. So actually it's quite intact. Yeah, I don't know if you can see the surface of the disk, the Big Dipper here, very clearly, 7 points in the very middle. And on the peripheral there are 365 dots. So basically, these dots represent the 365 days in a year. There's the bottom disk. There's names of all the 28 stars and also their location relative to each other. This is Di Xiu and Fang Xiu, and they count for 11 degrees in the whole circle. This Sagittarius. So again, Vega. So as you can see that as early as Han Dynasty, you already had a very accurate depiction of stars. So this was discovered in Fuyang of Anhui province in a tomb of a nobleman. So judging by this relic, the owner of the tomb was probably a high-ranking nobleman. Yes, because astronomy at the time was dominated by the government, by the royalty. Yes, and now we just received a question from the audience that tonight, right now we are 3 hours into our live stream, and an audience was quite impressed with all those celestial events. Tonight we have the longest lunar eclipse and also the Mars opposition. Yes, back then, 1,000 years ago, we already had a very accurate observation of the sky. Yeah, when you found out your ancestors had such advanced observation back then, how do you feel? I think that the ancient people had a very similar observation with us. So I think that was actually the most state-of-the-art equipment at the time. So right now we have a 2.16 meter apertures of telescope at the observatory. So it's actually basically equivalent to the piece we just saw in Han Dynasty. So much similarity in history. Another artist for us. Hi, my name is Wang Zhaoming. I'm a contemporary artist. So, yeah, from your outfit, we can see that you're definitely an artist. And tonight we have your work here. Could you tell us more about it? Yeah, since I was a kid, I had always been curious towards the universe. We all want to answer the question, who am I? Where did I come from? Where am I going to? So this poem I wrote is about the 8 planets orbit around Sun: Earth, Mars, Jupiter, etc., etc. So also through the Greek mythology to the Chinese legends, so all those poems actually draw inspirations from both of them. So this so this style is called Cao Shu. So you're using a old calligraphy style, but wrote in modern Chinese. So this night sky shines upon hardworking people on Earth. I never saw modern style poem written in cursive calligraphy style. Hermes is the brightest star in the sky and is most visible in the early morning. So Apollo is the god of sun, and then Hermes was seen as the god of night. And because Mercury rotates very fast, so it's the messenger of all gods. It moves fast. So when did you finish this work? I started in the beginning of February. So this year, yes. So particularly for this event, no. I wrote a lot about physics and astronomical events. So poem, heaven, calligraphy, art, astronomy, they're all very romantic. Do you consider yourself very romantic? Yeah, I think I am romantic in some sense. Because you have to go through the universe to find yourself. So I think that you can go down to the lowest dust, because compared to the huge universe, we are nothing. Sounds quite philosophical, and you're quite right. For art, you have to keep searching for the most novel, most spectacular, and you have to have imagination. Yes, artist's job is to search something very unique, transcend everything, has to let yourself go.
Venus, please embrace. Well, it's written in English. Venus. Venus is always the beautiful harmony. It has been waiting for thousands of years, because in Chinese history, Venus is called Tai Bai Jingxin. It is one of those brightest stars in the sky, second only to the sun. While in Greek language, it's called Aphrodite, because it is the goddess of love and beauty. It is a representation of beauty, and also this idea of beauty comes from Greek mythology. And what I say waiting for thousands of years, because it is rotating in an opposite direction. Well, I still have a lot to learn in astronomy, in art. And the next one is for the Earth. It is at the border of the universe. We've been waiting for a year, have been working diligently. The Earth is the only one planet with life that we can actually have a solid proof in the whole universe. So in the universe, it is a solitary planet, and we will keep being lonely because we haven't really explored any sign of life in other galaxies. We don't know whether life exists in other places of the universe. It is yet to be discovered, but for now we're still solitary, and there's yet to be proof existing any other civilizations, and now I feel actually lonely. But we're also lucky because the creator of life gives a space to actually support the lives of more than 7 billion people. And this is one is for Mars. With the wings of the god of war, we actually have the spark of the war. While in the Chinese ancient history, Mars is called Yinghuo star in Chinese ancient terminology, because whenever the appearance of Mars, we see the emptiness or the color of dust in the sky. And in the Western theory, the god of war is a representation of Mars. In the Roman language, it is also the name of the god of war, and also the seed of fire. And also we have to mention another god, Prometheus. This is one of the gods that is very important to us because it stole the seed of fire from the creator of life and brings civilization to human beings. This is the story of Prometheus. It also one of the very important gods who brings fire to the earth. And most importantly, it goes directly to the polar star, because polar star was also very important in the Chinese ancient history, because the Big Dipper rotate around the polar star. Well, this is very challenging because in your innovation there's science, there's legends, stories, fables, everything, all integrated together in the cursive style of Chinese calligraphy. And when ancient people observed Mars, they thought it was a bad omen, but for now we know this is only a natural event. And for Jupiter, when we go to the top of Mount Olympus, when we look around the sun, and we are showered by the light of all gods, because Jupiter, out of all planets, has the largest mass, and it is almost the sum of all the other planets. And this is also the dominant god Zeus of the Greek mythology, and also dominate the Mount Olympus. And it is surrounded by many companions when it goes back to the ancient history. In those patriarchal society, well, it was back then when, with the leader of the patriarchal society, it has a companion of many lovers. Due to limited time, we could only enjoy the several pieces of art from you, but this was really great. I really enjoyed my time with you. Thank you. Well, let's go back to science after enjoying several pieces of art. I'm going back to the two events we're observing. And number one, we have the most good-looking astronomer and astronomy engineers with me tonight. Please. Well, actually, we can see the screen here. At the first section of a live streaming, when I was talking with you, because you always stay up late for your work, because when you observe the sky, you only have to work in the evening. And what we are seeing now is Mars, and this is what we can see with the telescope on the ground. Well, we see Mars is moving because of the ventilation of the air. It's always very vague when we see Mars with unaided eyes. Well, at a higher level of the atmosphere, we always see this kind of convection of air, be it summer or winter. We always see kind of convection of air at the upper level of the atmosphere. And in winter, actually, it moves a lot with the ventilation of the air. And when we see images of Mars, and we actually sent some explorers on Mars, and those explorers sent back images of Mars. So when we are on the Earth observing Mars, this is a very ideal image we can get. And this is actually the largest image we can get when it's closest to the Earth. Whenever you want to get any good pictures, get the pictures when there's less interruption from the air. And also China, the Chinese government also has our own exploration program for Mars, and we are planning to project our own explorer on Mars, landing on Mars, and to exploring Mars and also get more accurate images from Mars. By 2020, the launch of the program. I'm really looking forward to this program. On the Earth, we can actually see really good images of Mars, but when we can send the explorers to Mars, we'll see even better images, very accurate images without any interruptions of the atmosphere, the air. Well, I would like to talk about the terrain features of Mars. This is a model of Mars. Well, I don't recognize it. It's like an onion. Well, it's onion like Mars. You could be a cook too, right? Oh, this is actually quite accurate. You see the surface of Mars. It is covered, well, at the polar North Pole area. This is very similar to what we see on the Earth. We see the ice cap on the northern pole. You see the solid and liquid ice here. On the South Pole, you see the ice cap too. And on the surface, it's not very even. It is covered with plain mountains, volcanoes. I heard there's a very high mountain, and this is one here. This is the Mount Olympus, one of the highest mountains. This is a volcano. The highest mountain in the solar system. It's actually 27 kilometers. And we know Mount Everest is only 8,800 meters. And this is 3 times of Mount Everest. And the diameter is about 600 kilometers, and the base area is equivalent to the area of the United Kingdoms. And see the crater here. This is large enough for 2 Londons, 2 large metropolitan cities. The crater is large enough for 2 Londons. And this is the highest mountain in the solar system. And the longest valley in the solar system too. We call it the Sailor System. And this is 4,000 kilometers, about the distance from Los Angeles to New York. The large canyon valley here. And what is the blackness here? These are mines. And the width is 200 kilometers, and the widest is 600 kilometers. The depth is 2 to 7 kilometers. The largest, longest valley in the solar system, much longer than the Grand Canyon in the United States. Well, we have a question from the netizens in the afternoon. When you are here in Xinglong and Beijing, do we have any other observatory in Beijing too? Well, because of the light pollution in Beijing, it would not be very convenient for the astronomical observation. That is why we move away from cities. So this is what we have explained at the first segment of the show, because we need to move away from cities, away from light pollution. Well, many netizens have been interacting with us in this afternoon. They actually said they mistook Mars for the moon, but what we talk about today is Mars deposition. This is the first look of the Mars, and in a few hours at 2:14 in the morning, 2:24 in the morning, we'll get the first glimpse of the total lunar eclipse. About the 15th of July, on the Science magazine, there was a very important discovery was announced. The Mars Express, one of the explorer that was sent to Mars, and they have discovered surrounding the area of the ice cap Probably here they have discovered a liquid lake. The diameter is about 20 kilometers. Oh, this is a very large lake. It's about the distance from the Olympic Park to Xiangshan Mountain. So while we have discovered this lake on Mars, well, we're not 100% sure, but there is the proof, or this is probably the proof of a liquid lake. Well, we are one step or a shorter distance away from the emigration to Mars. Well, with the full imagination, you feel like you have a chance to move to Mars. Well, there's a long way to go, right? Well, with the development of technology, we still need the effort of generations of scientists. Well, Professor Fan presented this ball. I was very surprised. Please hold it for me. I have another thing for you. This is a gift we have designed for this live streaming show, and I would like to take the time to actually ask you a question. Whoever answers this question correctly will be able to get the gift.
Yeah, of course, you two know the answer. But in 20 seconds, we'll have you announce the answer. Relax. You know the answer. It's a very simple question. And our back end will select 5 lucky audience, and they will contact us for this gift. So what's the question? What's the other orb? Its color is coppery red. So what is causing this planet to look like this? To look like this color? Start. If you have been listening very carefully, we had a guest actually talking about the color earlier. So what is causing the red color on Mars? So, well, if you have some basic elementary chemistry knowledge, you can answer this question. It's been 20 seconds now. Now, Mr. Fan, well, the reason why it looks red, there's something called iron oxide. So that's why it gives the planet this red color. So because on the surface of Mars is full of this iron oxide. The right answer is iron oxide. And to audience who just won the prize, congratulations. I still have a little time, and we'll leave this time to our fans and also astrophile audience, or people who want to shoot stars. And now we have an expert to give us some tips on shooting celestial bodies. Well, I'll just give some quick tips. So, astronomical photography needs professional cameras. Look at the picture behind me. All kinds of professional equipment. Different cameras, lenses. So let's just take a look on this. This is a 60 camera from Canon. Another one is more high-end. It's also from Canon. It's more advanced. So the difference between this one and the entry-level camera is that one thing is it has a better software for sensing, and also has a very low noise point. So if you use some entry-level camera to shoot night views, then you will have more noise but this one has less noise. And there are also other benefits. What about the lenses? Okay, pay attention. So there are usually two kinds of astronomical photography. One is deep space. There are three kinds of telescopes: reflection, refraction, and also folded. Yet basically the principle is the same, and you can actually make the aperture quite large. For fractional lens, is usually used on smaller telescope. But aperture is smaller, easy to use. Another keyword is quite expensive. Right. Yeah, usually the good ones are quite expensive. And they have actually a smaller aberration. Usually right now there are not many refractional lenses in the market. Most of them are reflectional. Also, you need something to guard against the Earth's rotation. And you also need a tripod like this. This is a quite easy to use, portable, entry-level tripod to stabilize your camera. It's much more stable than holding your camera by your hands. Very cost-effective. Sorry to interrupt. So I was instructed by my superior. Now I have to remind the audience who just answer the questions correctly. I want to congratulate the netizens whose names are hard to read: Chan Mian Fei Ce, IAN, MM An Bobo. Right, the right answer is iron oxide. Let's continue. Right, you need long time exposure. So if you use some amateur camera, it's hard to shoot videos like that. If you want to shoot photos of nebula. So you have to actually set the exposure time there, and then you don't need to wait there. You can leave the camera. And also you will also need other equipment like laptop. If you have any questions, you're welcome to ask our guests here. What's this picture for? This is about shooting the total lunar eclipse. So this was taken close to the bird nest. I thought that when there's lights, it's bad for the shooting. Right, so let me explain how this photo was taken. Because right now we have we have many softwares to retouch the photo. So first we need to expose the lunar eclipse many times, and then we shoot another photo of the ground, and then combine the two sets of photos together. That's a good way to shoot photo like this. Oh, okay. Can I copy this and add my own face to it? Right. And also optical lengths. The focal length is important. For example, this one's 100 millimeter lens. This is taken by 800 millimeter lens, the moon looks much bigger. But this 100 millimeter one already counts as a long length. Yes, if it's 400 millimeter is enough for a telescope. Yeah, we're running out of time. Oh, I think you helped our astrophile audience a lot. It's almost 10:40. I think that they can start from searching online first. Yes, astronomical photography is very interesting, and it gives you a great sense of achievement. You can shoot photos and things that can be seen with naked eye. It's also a very healthy habit. Very healthy hobby, right? Not really, because it requires burning night oils a lot, so not exactly that healthy. Now, I'll hand over the signal to my colleague in Qinghai Province. Thank you for watching. Bye.
央视记者楚尔佳。那么坐在我旁边的这位就是来自北京天文馆的寇文老师，非常欢迎您今天一起做客我们的节目哈。今天呢，我和寇老师现在所在的地点呢，就是位于青海省海西州的这个德令哈。那么德令哈的天文馆，我们正在这里的天文馆的3层的一个观测平台上，那么给大家做一个现场直播的报道。那么在接下来的1个小时左右的时间里呢，我将和寇老师一起呢与网友朋友们一起互动，来聊一聊今天晚上我们最值得观看的天象之一。这个火星大冲。那么首先啊，我在这里啊，先给网友朋友们介绍一下。大家看到我面前摆的这么一个一直在闪亮的这么一个小玩意儿，这个呢是我们今天在节目里头和网友互动，网友们即将得到的一个奖品。那么今天我们准备了5个这样的一个小，可以说